just that way tonight.
Within the label, within the process, within the game, what the game was.
Okay.
You know, I wasn't a priority.
That I had to endure, you know, people taking advantage or people manipulating.
Musiqsoulchild, one of the smoothest voices to ever bless R&B, a guy who gave us classics that still hit like they just dropped yesterday. But his story? It's way messier than people realize. Yeah, he came in swinging with that soul meets hip-hop magic, but the industry had other plans. They boxed him in, labeled him neo-soul, and expected him to play by their rules. And when he tried to break free, suddenly, the same people who loved him were acting brand new.
I mean, about the vision. It needs to be as it was given to us. We can't tamper with it. We gotta see it.
Then came the Husel. Yep, Musiqsoulchild as a trap-inspired alter ego. Fans were not feeling it. People clowned him, called it a midlife crisis, said he was ruining his legacy. But was it really a mistake, or just another case of an artist being punished for evolving?
Ain't no time to be no sucker in the field. Grind a dash out of you already know the drill.
From label drama and career-changing industry trades to creative reinventions that left fans scratching their heads, this is the real story of Musiqsoulchild. The highs, the lows, and the risks that made him one of the most debated names in R&B. Back in the late 90s, Talib Johnson was just another Philly kid with big dreams, pouring his heart into every note while singing on street corners. Fast forward a bit, and the world got introduced to him as Musiqsoulchild, dropping an album so packed with feeling and raw talent that it instantly set him apart. That first project still hits. It gave us gems like Just Friends, Sunny, Girl Next Door, and that song, Love. If you were around in the 2000s, you know exactly why it had everybody deep in their feelings. Even now, it's got that magic that makes you stop whatever you're doing and just feel it. Musiqsoulchild's come up wasn't all smooth sailing. Yeah, his first album had people hooked, but it also put him in a box he never signed up for. The industry stamped him as a neo-soul artist, throwing him in with legends like Erykah Badu, D'Angelo, and Jill Scott. But music, he never saw himself that way. Long before the major label deals, the packed open mic nights, or even people knowing his name, he was on something different. His sound wasn't just R&B with a little jazz and poetry mixed in. It had that raw, street-level energy, pulling from hip-hop in a way that felt more A Tribe Called Quest and De La Soul than Mary J. Blige. Artists labeled as neo-soul all seem to have the same issue, hating being labeled as neo-soul. Other artists too, like Common, doesn't want to be boxed in as a conscious rapper. Erykah Badu sees the term as limiting, and he said himself that soul music goes way beyond just R&B. So did the whole neo-soul sound fade out because people tried to lock it in one place? Probably. Being put in a category like that is like being handed a script and told to stick to the lines. The second an artist wants to try something else, people start acting like it's illegal. Like, why is it a problem when someone wants to expand and do more? That kind of pressure makes artists step back. Nobody wants to nurture something that feels like a trap. And when the music isn't landing how it was meant to, when the meaning starts getting lost, it's easy to see why people distance themselves from it.
Sometimes I get a perfect picture in my mind. I must have played it up.
It's the same frustrating cycle. Someone gets known for doing one thing, and suddenly the world acts like that's all they can do. And if they try to explain themselves, oh, suddenly they're the ones who are confused, as if other people get to decide what their own art even means. He's had moments where folks tried to tell him who he is, like they had the manual on Musiqsoulchild. But the second an artist pushes back and says, hey, I want to grow, I want to try something new, suddenly it's betrayal. People act like they're being abandoned, when really, the artist is just trying to give them more of what they already love, just in a way that actually feels real. From the jump, Musiq was flipping R&B in a way that felt different. He wasn't just singing over smooth beats. He had hip-hop in his DNA. You could hear it when he beatboxed on Just Friends Sunny, when his melodies had that effortless rap-like bounce, when he carried himself more like a street dancer than a love song crooner. Imagine Bobby Brown, but instead of growing up on New Jack Swing, he was raised on boom bap. The problem, the industry didn't know what to call it. Sure, it got him major success, but it also made people see him as something he never really was. That push and pull between who he was and what the industry wanted him to be followed him for years. What started as a win eventually started feeling like a creative straitjacket, and Musiq wasn't about to let that box him in. So, he switched things up, new names, new alter egos, like the Husel and Purple Wonderlove. Anything to shake off the labels, people kept sticking on him.
Deal? Okay, what does that mean? You got a record deal, like, with a label? Like, yeah, well, like, well, what label? And it was like, with Def Jam. We could probably, I think it's a good shot. You could have a deal with Def Jam. I was like, with Russell Simmons? They were like, no, God, you don't know nothing.
If he could go back and talk to his younger self, the advice would be simple. Stand firm. Whatever you believe you are, own it. People will try to tell you otherwise. Try to mold you into something that fits their vision. But if you know who you are, don't budge. That doesn't mean ignoring good advice, especially from people who actually know what they're talking about. But if you're confident in your lane, stick with it. Even if that lane shifts later, at least it'll be your choice. Because once you let people start tweaking who you are, they won't stop. And that's exactly what happened.
I meant about the vision. Mm-hmm. It needs to be as it was given to us. Mm-hmm. We can't tamper with it. Mm-hmm. We got to see it.
Musiqsoulchild will be the first to tell you, getting his foot in the door wasn't exactly a smooth ride. He didn't have much guidance, if any, and the industry, let's just say it wasn't built to make things easy. But instead of blaming the people around him, he saw the bigger picture. The system was the system, like clocking into a 9-to-5 you don't even like, but knowing that's just how it works. Either you deal with it, or you don't sign up for it at all. The industry isn't for the weak, and if you don't know what you're walking into, it'll eat you alive.
Because it happened so fast, I had no context of what was going on. And, the people that I was working with at the time, God bless them, their focus was...
The music industry has never been a fair game, and he's gotten to understand that from experience. Business, money, people. There's always someone trying to come out on top. Expecting everything to be fair? That's wishful thinking. Even the contracts that look like they're protecting you have fine print that can trip you up. It all comes down to what you know and how well you can navigate it. If you don't, you might end up in a deal that's nearly impossible to fix.
Anyway.
Who was there at the Waffle House?
It's crazy. As you're talking, we had a Wallow on.
Oh, Wallow, yeah.
We had Wallow on, and I wouldn't say the same word, but the same energy of like the just grind mode, just go, like there's no stop. And RC asked the question I'm gonna ask you. Do you have hobbies? Do you have a good time?
Back when he started, he didn't know a thing. Everything was a blur, and he was just rolling with it. There wasn't time to think about feelings. Either you were getting to it, or you weren't. The problem? He didn't have enough support to remind him that he could say no. Every time he had an idea, the odds seemed stacked against him. And since he was new to all this, he figured, well, they brought me in. They must know what they're doing. So he went along with it. The logic made sense. If the lane was open, why not take it? Less traffic, faster success. But that shortcut came with a cost. He got his big break under Def Soul, the R&B branch of Def Jam, where he dropped his first 3 albums. Those records weren't just successful, they made it clear he had a sound nobody else was touching. With tracks like Half Crazy, Don't Change,
Just as long as your love don't change.
and For the Night. He had the charts in a chokehold while still keeping that hip-hop soul essence that set him apart. In 2006, things took a left turn for Musiq. Not because of anything he did, but because of some behind-the-scenes label maneuvering. Def Jam and Atlantic basically swapped him for Fabulous, like a music industry trade deal. On the surface, it might have looked like business as usual, but for an artist, switching labels isn't just a paperwork thing. It can shake up everything. Momentum, promo plans, even the checks coming in.
Within the label, within the process, within the game, what the game was.
Okay.
I wasn't a priority.
Labels put money into their artists, But when an artist gets shuffled around, they basically have to start from scratch. New label, new team, new execs who might not even get their sound or care about their vision the same way. At Def Soul, Musiq had a solid setup, people who knew how to market him, fans who expected him to be part of that R&B lineup. Moving to Atlantic meant walking into a whole new system, where priorities might have been totally different. That kind of switch can throw off everything: album rollouts, radio play, and the overall game plan, making it way harder to keep the same momentum. Money gets messy when labels switch things up. Advances, royalties, contracts, it's a whole new game. And if the new label isn't as invested, an artist can end up scrambling to stay afloat. Musiq still made it work at Atlantic, dropping Leuven Music and scoring a hit with Teach Me. But there's no denying the move shook things up. A shift like that can change everything. And for him, it definitely did.
That I had to endure, people taking advantage, people being people manipulating.
After spending decades in the industry, keeping up with how fast everything shifts is no easy task. He has learned to just lock in on what he came to do and hope his music connects with the right people, the ones who truly get it. At the end of the day, there's only so much he can control when it comes to how people receive his work. He came up in a time when the digital world wasn't running the show, so adjusting to the new era has been a challenge. His foundation was built in a completely different landscape, making all this tech-heavy evolution feel like learning a new language. He's figuring it out as he goes, doing what he can to transition. Where it all leads, only time will tell.
Ain't no time to be no sucker in the field. Grind or dash out or you already know the drill.
Musiqsoulchild has always been that guy, dropping classics, stacking up hits, and getting love for his sound. But lately, not so much. Ever since he introduced the Husel and Purple Wonder Love,
You should do it right. Doing what you love.
some people just haven't been rocking with it. Feels weird, right? An artist who's been dropping heat for years suddenly getting dragged for switching things up. The comments on YouTube have been less than kind. So, he actually wanted to drop Purple Wonder Love first, but he got it in his head that people were asking for the Husel. Huge miscalculation. He looked at the radio, saw everyone riding the same wave, and thought, all right, this is what y'all want? Cool, here you go. But when he dropped it, the response was basically, nah, we didn't mean that. And he was just sitting there like, so why do y'all keep streaming this stuff then? The whole thing had him scratching his head for a minute. He was on the same energy, just putting more thought into it. But what he didn't see coming, apparently being positive wasn't the move. Oops. So then he flipped it and put out Purple Wonder Love. No promo, no explanation, just dropped it. And suddenly, people were all over it, calling it amazing. Meanwhile, he's in the back like, cool, but I was literally doing the same thing with the Husel. The only difference is the beats. He admitted he had to laugh when he heard that one. Somebody went from dragging him for his personas to admitting they actually liked most of the Purple Wonder Love EP after running it back a few times. The back and forth had him cracking up. This is exactly why he doesn't take comments too seriously. People were heated over the Husel, but if you ask them why, they couldn't really say. It was always some mix of, just give us another Musiqsoulchild album, or how could you do this to us? Like he personally betrayed them. But then, when asked if they even listened to the project, they were like, nah, I don't need to. Okay, then what are we even talking about? Either way, he's not shelving anything. The Husel, still happening. Purple Wonder Love, that too. And, of course, Musiqsoulchild isn't going anywhere. He gets that it's a lot to process, but at the end of the day, it is happening, whether people keep up or not. He never waited around for approval. The second he stopped looking for support and just did his thing, the right people showed up. He never planned on explaining it, but since there's an audience, it makes sense to give them some context. He's not out here playing industry games, just making what feels real. And yeah, people overcomplicate the Husel all the time, twisting it into whatever narrative makes sense to them, no matter how many times he's laid it out. That's why he stopped explaining. Instead, he's working on a tour. If you really want to get it, pull up and see for yourself. This isn't some big mastermind plan. No end goal, no 5-year strategy, just instincts, experience, and whatever sounds right in the moment. The point? Doing it. And once it's done, on to the next. Not everything is going to be polished. Not everything is going to be for everyone. But that's life. He'd rather stay true to his ideas than water them down just to please everybody. The right people will find it.
Now we got a cat that's gonna show you how it all sounds like. And this young man is another pioneer on his way. Ladies and gentlemen, singing superstition is music.
Musiqsoulchild was all set to make a big comeback and remind everyone that he's always been a hip-hop soul artist at heart. But the world had other ideas, and instead of shutting down a Philly stage, he got stuck waiting it out like everyone else.
Hey man, so I'm just here for the concert. What song are you doing first?
That's funny. That's funny.
I'm just messing with you, man.
So according to Musiq, every year there was this plan to do something in February to honor J Dilla, but life kept getting in the way. There were talks with his mom over the years about putting something together, but nothing ever lined up. And then there was this bigger project in the works, one that had been sitting in the background since way back, but pulling it off meant securing real financial backing. So dropping Do It for Dilla was step one, a way to get things moving toward making that bigger vision happen. Back when Dilla was around, there were actual conversations about making music together. He was always sending over beats, dropping off CDs, throwing out ideas. But things kept getting pushed to the side, and before you know it, time just ran out. Fast forward, and the passion for making music under the Musiqsoulchild name was fading. The weight of expectations, the constant noise from people who had just discovered the music but suddenly had so much to say, it all got exhausting. Imagine spending years building something, only for new fans to show up late and start demanding things like they had any real say in it. There was no energy for that. No patience to argue with people online about things they didn't actually understand. It wasn't just frustrating, it was draining. That's when the reset button needed to be hit. The best way to figure things out was to go back to the core of it all. Suddenly, the memories came rushing in. Days of playing Stevie Wonder's music on repeat, studying Marvin Gaye and Donny Hathaway, feeling that jolt after first hearing Prince and realizing he did everything himself. Then there was Michael Jackson, larger than life, making it impossible not to want to move, sing, create. That's where the spark came from. Those sounds, those artists, paired with beats from Dilla, that was the blueprint. It was a way to honor the ones who shaped everything. The ones who made Musiqsoulchild even exist in the first place. More importantly, it was a way to strip away all the extra noise and reconnect with the version of himself that got lost somewhere along the way. The plan was 10 tracks, but finishing and mixing all of them in time wasn't realistic. There was a deadline, and instead of rushing it, the smart move was to split it up. 5 tracks from male artists, 5 from female artists. That's how the Soul Brother series turned into something bigger, with the Soul Sista series coming next. Before it even dropped, the tracks got an early preview at a listening party in LA, inside an art exhibit by the producer BDB, the same artist behind the cover art. This wasn't some random link-up either. While putting everything together, his work kept coming to mind. The year before, there was this moment of seeing his art and knowing it was something special. His takes on Stevie Wonder and Marvin Gaye, insane. So the idea of pairing that kind of imagery with the project just made sense. When the reach out happened, it turned out he was already a fan. Not just of the music, but of Dilla too. What started as using his artwork for the cover turned into a full collaboration, including hosting the listening party at his gallery. Now, the second installment highlights some legends on the R&B and soul side. Anita Baker, Chaka Khan, Whitney Houston, Sade, and Aretha Franklin. And this is just the beginning, the way it's shaping up. The goal is to dedicate whole batches to individual icons. A full Stevie Wonder run, a Marvin Gaye collection, a Donny Hathaway set. There are too many beats, too many classics, too many ways to flip this concept into something lasting. The whole thing kicked off in the most random way possible. A regular day in downtown Atlanta, fresh off an interview, just walking around when 2 guys outside a record store hit him with the classic, "Yo, check out my music." Normally, that's an easy pass, but there was something different about the approach. Especially from Alex. His energy wasn't the usual pushy, "I need something from you" kind of thing. It was genuine. A real fan moment like, "You don't get how much this means to me. Just give me a second." And honestly, there was no reason to say no. So into the record store he went. only to find a whole studio hidden in the back, which of course is classic Atlanta. Studios everywhere. Laughs. The setup was unexpected, but the second the beat dropped, it was clear Alex knew exactly what he was doing. That one track? Still saved to this day. The song actually got recorded right then and there. The chemistry was too good to ignore, and that link-up turned into something that stuck. Over time, they worked on a few records together, including one that made it onto Feel the Real. It wasn't just about the music either. Alex and his producer Dave Luke ended up being a real creative reset, pushing things in a direction that felt fresh again. Alex wasn't just some artist trying to get put on. He studied engineering, hit the road as a tech, and knew his way around a studio like it was second nature. And Dave? The way his brain works musically is on another level. The only producer out here who even comes close to thinking like Dilla. Seeing them take in everything and evolve made the whole process feel full circle. It wasn't about putting them on game, but watching them take what they already had and run with it. So when the idea of forming a group came up, it was a no-brainer. It all just clicked. That's how Lumi Trice happened. An energy that blends hip-hop soul with a throwback feel but still stays forward-thinking. There's a little bit of that De La Soul, Native Tongues influence, but more than anything, it's a space to create freely. No boxes, no rules, just the kind of music that pulls out the best parts of what's already there.